Welcome, everyone. We're going to start in about 1 to 2 minutes. Well, welcome to Arlington Tech's information session. My name is Margaret Chung, and I'm the principal of the Arlington Career Center in Arlington Tech. Our mission is to provide our students with a rigorous learning environment, which inspires and develops self-directed paths to college success and in-demand careers through the integration of project-based learning, college-level coursework, STEM, and career and technical education. Our presentation this evening will be from 7 to 7:45, followed by a question and answer session with our distinguished panel members comprised of our students, our parents, and our staff, and that will be from 7:45 to 8:15. Arlington Tech is part of the Arlington Career Center, which serves approximately 600 to 700 career and technical education CTE students from across the district. We also have 4 full-time programs, which include Arlington Tech, the Academic Academy, our English Learner Institute, and the Program for Employment Preparedness. So if you are interested in just taking the CTE or career and technical education courses, you can always access this from your home schools when you attend. If you want to attend as a full-time Arlington Tech student, you may then apply through our application process as our options program. And we will answer more of these questions later on during our panel session. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Catherine Steinmetz, our coordinator of Arlington Tech.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine Steinmetz, and I'm the coordinator for the Arlington Tech program. Ms. Chung just highlighted that we are one of the full-time programs at the Arlington Career Center. And what distinguishes us from your neighborhood high school or from the other choice programs are these things that you see right here on this slide. And these are really the hallmarks of who we are as a program. Project-based learning is our instructional method. So that's how all of our learning gets delivered to students, and students interact through project-based learning. So that's the center of who we are. And connected to that is our tech, right? Our STEM, and which is delivered through our CTE. CTE stands for Career and Technical Education. We are at the Arlington Career Center, which is our CTE center for Arlington Public Schools. And so Arlington Tech students have access to the incredible variety of courses that Career Center offers. And as an Arlington Tech student, our students start taking their CTE courses in the 9th grade year, in their freshman year. And they get to double up on them and start to really explore lots of different CTE pathways, earning certifications, and becoming career ready. And the other big piece of who we are is this college experience. We offer dual enrolled classes with Northern Virginia Community College. For the most part, that robust curriculum begins in the 11th and 12th grades, but some of our students will start earlier. And our students have access to a lot of dual enrolled credits through this partnership with Northern Virginia Community College. All 3 of those things build to work-based learning experiences in our capstone, which we'll talk a little bit more about this evening as well. So like I said, project-based learning is really the heart of who we are. That's what students are going to notice right away is feeling different than a traditional school experience. And you can see some scenes from our classroom on this slide. You'll see things that probably stick out right away is that project-based learning is very collaborative, and it's very student-oriented, student-directed, it's action-oriented. You'll see a lot of activity, talking, problem-solving, planning, managing. That's what's happening in our classrooms in a project-based learning capacity. So let's go a little bit deeper into that. Let's think about, in a very traditional school, what learning might look like, and in project-based learning, in our school, what that would look like. So here are some examples. I'm going to highlight the one right at the bottom because this project, all three of these projects are happening in our school. The bottom one in the blue is in one of our pre-calculus classes, and it's just wrapping up. And I've gotten so many students give me awesome feedback about how cool this project was. And there's not often that a student finds you and says, "I had the best time in pre-calculus." But our students were really jazzed about this project. So in a very traditional setting, you know, in a math classroom, a very traditional math classroom, they'd probably listen to a lecture by their teacher, some sort of direct instructional method. They might watch the teacher solve a couple different problems. They might be prompted to try solving those problems on their own. There'd be a formal assessment, and it'd be very teacher heavy, teacher directed. In order to build those skills. In our pre-calculus classroom, our teacher started with this driving question. The bold type is the driving question, and the driving question in that project is really what starts the student down that self-directed path. It starts the student to think about other questions, and those questions, as they come out, are what help navigate the student through the project. So how can we use math to drive a rover on a distant planet? And students were assigned in teams, they were assigned a very specific region of Mars to navigate a rover through. And they had to plot their course to avoid craters and boulders, and they had to use pre-calculus functions and trigonometric functions in order to do that and make that presentation and demonstrate that to the class. And it was fun to see who was successful, who ran into trouble, talk about what was problematic, you know, and how the math had to continually adapt to the unknowns of the course. And students were seeing how in real life those functions began to take shape, literally, in the case of the rover. So that was a really fun project that just wrapped up, and hopefully that helps illustrate, these projects help to illustrate what we're talking about in terms of project-based learning. So actually, I want to go even deeper because I think it's really, really critical that students and families that are considering us really think about what that school experience is going to feel like as a student of project-based learning. So here's another really cool project that we just wrapped up, and it's the COVID candy dispenser project, and this was a 9th grade project. And the driving question for this project was, how can we build a safe and effective candy dispenser that meets COVID protocols and CDC guidelines for trick-or-treating? And the students had a client for this project. They had to solve this problem, build this problem for either themselves or their neighbors. And so some of them canvassed the neighborhood and asked, "Hey, do you guys want me to build you a candy dispenser?" Some of them did it for their own house, but they had to do a client. And it was an integrated project, so it included a collaboration between their engineering and their geometry courses. And the skills that really were built, the focus of this project, the skill building was critical thinking, design thinking, creativity, and collaboration. And the tasks that were included were that they had to meet with their client to understand the needs of their client, the specifications of their client. They needed to write a design brief based on those specifications. They created 3 orthographic drawings using some engineering skills that they're beginning to learn in their Engineering 1 class. They had to use a decision matrix to select which was the final design, and they had to do this collaboratively with other peers in their class. They had to calculate the surface area to source their materials, and one of the restrictions was that it had to be recyclable materials. They built, they tested, they redesigned, so they prototyped in this process, then they rebuilt, and they had to deliver their final project on time, meeting the specifications of the client and the specifications of their manager, their teacher. So let's look at one of the examples that I have for you tonight. Oh, before I look at the example, yep, go ahead, Laura, please. So what the screen that we're looking at now, I know the text is very hard to read, and I'm going to ask one of my colleagues to put the link to this graphic into the Q&A box so you can grab that. But this is the framework for what project-based learning is at Arlington Tech. And project-based learning is going to go through 4 phases. We're going to start with this launch, and in the launch, we're going to start generating interest and generating questions and understanding the constraints of the project, also understanding the learning needs, understanding what the student needs to learn in order to accomplish the project. And when I say we, I mean the student and their group, or if it's an independent project, the student. They're going to start with that pre-assessment process and understanding, where am I going? What do I need? How do I do this? And there's some brainstorming involved in that. That's going to push them into the learning process. All of our projects are standards connected. So even though we do great, cool things like, drive rovers on Mars, those are connected to pre-calculus standards. Building a candy dispenser is connected to a geometry standard. It is connected to engineering standards. And so that learn phase is where the teacher, through a variety of instructional methods, some of which might be direct instruction, some of which could be workshops or labs or some other inquiry-based method of instruction, it assures that the student is building their knowledge and skills that are connected to the learning standards. And the student is an active participant in that process. They will often fill out what we call a needs to know. And the student is beginning with understanding what they need to know. And as they work through that the project, they're checking off, adding new things to that list, and starting to direct their learning. Just as you would as a professional working through a project, you would think about, what resources do I have? What resources do I need? What do I know? What do I need to know? And that's what our students do in the classroom. Once that foundation is built, the standards, we've addressed this learning standards, we've understand the constraints of the project, then the students will push the project. The next phase of the project will be create. And that's really when we get down to the details of building something. Now all of our projects aren't about building, and it's great that we have some teachers and students here tonight to talk to you about the variety of different projects. Some of our projects are problem solving based, some of them are debates or persuasive arguments. But when I say create, I mean create something. Use those learning standards in a way that is relevant and connected to a client, connected to a community. And then, of course, the end of the project, the last phase, would be this reflection. And that's when our students would think about what went well in terms of my own work, what went well in my collaboration in my group. Did I have enough support from my teacher? Did I have too much support from my teacher? What was the most successful part of this project? What skills do I need to develop in order to be more successful in the next project? And so we always kind of end our projects with some level of reflection. So within the COVID candy dispenser, this is what that looks like. In the launch phase, there was an entry event, and then that needs to know process, and then that initial client consult. That learn phase is when they started to do a brainstorm. They started to build what their an outline for their decision matrix. They learned the skills connected to the technical drawings, and then they ended with another client consult. The create phase was when they built their prototype, yet another client consult, the build, and that's an iterative process. And then of course the reflection at the end. So here's an example from this project. This is an example of one of our students' work. You can see that this is their language in the design brief. They've written their problem statement, they've written their design statement, they've designated their criteria and their constraints, and that's a collection from their client and also from their teacher. And then they prototyped. They built. They used their group's brainstorm to develop those orthographic drawings, and that was a big skill. That was a big process to go from not knowing how to draw on our CAD software to drawing on our CAD software. And you can see we're still at the beginning of the year. These are 9th grade students, but the skills that they're building and the understanding here is clearly demonstrated in this project. So let's flip to the next slide. This is their decision matrix, and then their final product. And what I will say is that for us and for our teachers, the final product's important, but it's the process that we focus on. It's the process through the learn phase, the create phase. That's where our attention is. And the end result, the product, if it looks great, if it was successful, if it worked, that's great. If it wasn't successful, that doesn't mean it was a bust. Did the student learn? Did they build experience, master those learning standards? Did they learn skills in collaboration and project management? That's what we focus on, and not always the end result. I will say that the students love and get really excited about their projects, but it's from the teacher point of view, we really focus on the process involved. In light of that, we also really focus as an instructional team, really focus on building skills. We talk a lot about skills at Arlington Tech. Our students probably get very used to that very quickly. We have core learning skills, but we also have some core values that we focus on. In the COVID Candy project, these were some of the skills that our students started to mature and develop. And these are really the skills that a student, to be successful, to feel successful at Arlington Tech, needs to have an interest in developing. So needs to have an interest in becoming more and more of a self-directed learner. That's going to look very different in the 9th grade than it is in the 11th and 12th grade. But we want students to want to engage in that process in becoming that self-directed learner, and in the self-advocacy piece as well. That needs to know process. It's embedded in the project-based learning opportunities. Collaboration. Students need to want to be collaborative. They should want to be collaborative because, every scene from our classroom is very, very collaborative. And so that's a hallmark of who we are. Growth mindset. There's a lot of problem solving. There's a lot of incremental progress. There's a lot of, it's just engineering thinking, right? Like making incremental progress, embracing our mistakes, looking at them and moving forward. And then the key also to this is that strong time management. And that's connected to that self-directedness, but it's also connected to managing projects. And so all of these skills naturally embed in PBL, in project-based learning. They strengthen through PBL, but then our teachers as a team focus on these skills. We actually assess students on these skills. Twice a year, we give them like a skills report card, and we give them, the students will assess their own skills and set some goals for themselves, and then we'll assess their skills. And that's very different than the focus on the academics that a traditional report card, which we still have, of course, but sometimes it's hard to really understand what skills do I need to really develop, and what are my strengths and what are my opportunities. So at Arlington Tech, we do focus on the skills because we know the skills are what help students to be successful in this unique learning environment. So I'm going to hand it over to Miss Jessica Baker, one of our assistant principals.
Good evening. It's so great to have so many of you joining us tonight. My name is Jess Baker. I am one of the assistant principals at the Career Center. I'm going to start with talking a little bit about our structured course pathway. One of the things that is unique in Arlington Tech is that we have a structured pathway of courses that allows students to work as a cohort. And there's a focus in each one of the grade levels. In your 9th grade as a cohort, you're focusing on your foundational skills. This will include an engineering class for each of our students. And as Ms. Steinmetz was reviewing, that's really about the design process and kind of unpacking and thinking about problems. In your 10th grade year, you're going to be looking at getting to explore a number of the CTE or career and technical education classes that are offered at the Career Center. And so that's going to be your opportunity to start figuring out what classes are of interest to you, potentially as a possible future career. And then all of that starts leading up to your 11th grade year, in which you have a number of opportunities to stretch yourself in your academics by taking dual enrolled classes through NOVA. Which means you'll actually earn a credit from APS and a NOVA credit at the same time. And I'll go over a little bit more of that in a few minutes. But along the way, in each one of these grades, you're moving through your classes with your cohort. So we have students participating in this cohort so that way you're learning those skills, working together, that collaboration, communication, all those other background skills. And all of that leads up to your 12th grade capstone, which we'll go over a lot more in detail a little bit later. But one of the things about that is think about your capstone as this culminating experience, taking those foundational classes and skills that you learned, building upon what you explored in your CTE classes, and then your academics, and bringing that all together to this amazing year-long program and kind of capstone experience that you get to help create. And our next slide, we're going to talk a little bit more about the structured course pathway. And so what you'll see is that there's the most variation along the math classes, but otherwise, especially in your 9th grade year, everyone's going to be taking the same courses, same as in 10th grade and 11th grade. But what you see is you get to pick in terms of the level of that coursework. In our math classes, that's where we have the most variation. And what we're looking for there is to make sure that for your math by 10th grade that you are ready to enter after Algebra 2. All of that is making sure that you have the content that you need to access your dual enrolled courses, and also those are foundational skills for so much of what we focus on in Arlington Tech. As you see along the 11th grade column and 12th grade column, and even starting a little bit in 10th, anywhere that you see in parentheses the letters DE, those are classes that have the option to take as one of those NOVA credits for dual enrollment, which means you get that credit both from APS and from NOVA, which is a really exciting opportunity for you to earn those credits now. And you can see also that your CTE classes build along the way, and part of your schedule in 12th grade will be your capstone. So our next slide talks a little bit more about the benefits of our structured course pathway. One of the things that's really unique about participating in Arlington Tech is that you have the opportunity, if you take advantage of a number of our dual enrolled credits, you can actually earn an associate's degree from NOVA while you're in high school. The other thing that's important about that is that the dual enrollment courses that we offer are selected intentionally to be highly transferable credits. What that means is if you were to apply to a number of Virginia colleges and universities, those credits, those English, science, history, math, or even some CTEs, but really those core content areas, those can transfer to those universities or colleges and also outside of Virginia and earn the ability for you to not have to take some of those general education courses in your freshman year in college. So you can enter college focusing on your major coursework instead of those general ed classes along the way, which saves you a lot of money. But it also allows you to have that opportunity to stretch yourself and experience some very rigorous coursework while you're in high school. We wanted to take a few minutes to explain and kind of showcase a number of our amazing CTE classes that we have at the Career Center. Our Career and Tech Ed classes, our CTE classes, is where we as Arlington Tech leverage the STEM in our program. So your science, technology, engineering, math all come together in your CTE opportunities. So it's about the connection with these courses that you're going to get that. And you can see that a number of our CTE classes also contain the option to earn dual enrollment credit. And we have a few of them that also will you earn 2 credits for many of these classes along the way, but in particular our physical therapy, sports medicine class, animal science, and biotechnology all will also earn you a science credit as well. What's really amazing is, again, putting these different skills and interests together to really figure out what you might be interested in as a career field, and also building up towards that capstone. And our skills are not, our STEM is not just tied to engineering, but you can see that there's so many opportunities that connect with the medical field, electricity, food, with our culinary arts, our graphics and animation. You're really able to explore a number of different options through our CTE classes. Is that my, I think I have one more. Nope, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Corey Maynor, who's my assistant principal counterpart.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Yes, so the capstone experience for the 12th grade, as you heard Ms. Baker state, this is the culminating project for students where students are engaged in the opportunity to take all of their cross-curricular learning, all of the project-based experience that they've had from 9th through 11th grade, and have the opportunity to apply and advance that knowledge in a real-world business and industry setting. And so what you see here in this graphic are 3 different domains that students have the opportunity to explore their capstone experience. The intern at a job site is where students would work with a mentor, supervisor at an actual job site. They would acquire daily responsibilities and work towards the integration as an actual employee there, where they would receive actual professional evaluations in that setting. The other is as a project consultant, where students would provide a company or a business or a program with some sort of service or good, and the terms on that that good or service that they present would be contractually arranged with that business or program, and so they are gauged on the product that they are able to deliver through the project consultant. And then the third domain is being a principal investigator. And this is where the student would have the opportunity to develop their own research proposal. And in developing that research proposal, they get to work with a university counterpart who partners with them. That can work through a university, through a laboratory, that could also work through a business or a program as well. It is When students are engaged in this program, it takes up about half of their school day where they would be engaged in this capstone experience, giving the students opportunity to get outside of the four walls of the school building and begin to apply their knowledge into the real world. So it's a great opportunity for students to get immersed into and apply their learning from their previous 3 years of schooling. We also have clubs and activities at the Career Center / Arlington Tech. The clubs and activities that we have are for all students. There are 2 clubs that we have that are strictly for Arlington Tech. That is our cultural leadership team as well as our learning leadership team. Those are exclusive to Arlington Tech. Those programs focus primarily on the cultural development of the school, as well as how to enhance the learning atmosphere and environment for students in the Arlington Tech program. But we have roughly over a dozen other clubs that are either connected to the career and technical education program, or they are connected to professional organizations. What you see pictured here wearing the purple shirts, we have our Ultimate Frisbee. That is our one athletic club that we have. We have it for boys and girls. Down below, you also see pictures of our students who are involved in Model General Assembly and Model United Nations. But you'll also notice a couple of pictures where we have a field hockey team, and we also have cheerleaders. And you'll notice that the students in those pictures are not wearing Arlington Tech uniforms. They're not wearing Arlington Career Center uniforms. And that's because our students have the ability to participate in the VHSL clubs at their neighborhood schools. Because we are a program, we don't have VHSL teams at Arlington Tech, so students would participate at their home schools. And that also goes for some of the larger events that take place, is that students are also able to at times attend dances and things of that nature. Some we host, some the neighborhood schools will host for students to be able to participate and engage in at a larger level. Also on here, addressing the issue of buses. We do have the busing system for students, so there would be a bus that will pick students up from a neighborhood hub spot and bring you to the Career Center in the morning and take you home after school. If you're sticking around for after school programs, some of these activities and clubs, there is a late bus that will take students back to their home neighborhood. There also is the opportunity for students to take the bus to the neighborhood school so that they can participate in in sports activities if they are involved in those types of clubs or organizations at the neighborhood schools. And the application process. So it's important to know that the online application opens now, and that it closes January 15th at 4 p.m. And a couple of the things that are going to be important for you to acknowledge. You heard Ms. Baker speak frequently about the idea of the cohort, and you heard Ms. Steinmetz talk about the pathway of the program. In the application process, you are required to acknowledge your involvement in the cohort process, right? So the agreement that you are going to work through the pathway that we have developed for Arlington Tech. And so it is a model that ensures interdisciplinary learning and structured support. And so as that pathway is delivered, it is we don't switch schedules out of the pathway that we offer, but it is so that we can help build the foundations to help you matriculate effectively into the dual enrollment courses that we have in the upper levels to complete our program successfully. It's also important to note that there is a math requirement as part of the application process that you need to acknowledge as well. And that is that on one level, that AFTA and Algebra 2 are to be completed by the end of 10th grade. And that's to help students, again, begin to be able to transition into the dual enrollment classes in their junior and senior year. But also with that, it's important to understand that as students coming out of the 8th grade, if you are completing grade 8 math, that in your 9th grade year, you'll take an integrated Algebra 1 as well as an integrated geometry course simultaneously in your 9th grade year to help keep you on track for finishing at either AFTA or Algebra 2 by the end of 10th grade. And so now I'm going to pass it back to Catherine Steinmetz and give us a little recap.
Yeah, thank you for staying with us. So just kind of to leave you with who we are and the most kind of important points from today's presentation. It's that, you know, we are a project-based learning school. School will feel, it will look a little bit different than a traditional learning environment. And we do complex work in our projects, but work that is also very meaningful. We offer rigorous college credits through our unique partnership with Northern Virginia Community College. Our students, like Ms. Baker said, can earn that associate's degree if they schedule their courses just right. Most of them will walk away with a huge chunk of their general education credits done. So, you know, just a couple weeks ago, I ran into one of our recent graduates, and he transferred to an in-state university, and he walked in as a junior. And it actually caused a problem for him because he is on a JROTC scholarship and he needs to be at his university for 4 years. And as a junior, he's already well into his accomplishing his major. And so he just picked up another major. So he's actually going to graduate in 4 years, but he's going to have 2 majors in instead of 1. And then, you know, our incredible STEM resources, and that's our career and technical education classes. Wish we could be in the building tonight. I wish I could give you a tour of our building, but the Career Center is this hidden gem in Arlington. People come over and they can't believe what we have in our building. The technical resources, our CTE labs, just what's happening in our building is incredible. And as an Arlington Tech student, you start taking those CTE courses in your 9th grade year. By the 10th grade year, you're starting to explore multiple pathways. When you finish your PE or you finish your world language requirement, you're adding additional CTE classes. So as an Arlington Tech student, you get the opportunity to explore culinary, but also engineering because you want to be a food scientist, or you explore elementary ed and one of our medical classes because you want to be a pediatrician. And that's unique as an Arlington Tech student because although our CT classes are offered to students at all the APS high schools, it's really quite competitive to get one of those in your schedule. And it usually is in the 11th and 12th grade because you do have to complete your some of your graduation requirements before getting bussed over to the Career Center. Arlington Tech students are already at the Career Center, and we build those right into our structured course pathway. So that's why it's really unique for students to explore multiple of our CT classes. And then, of course, what sets us apart, the last thing that sets us apart is that capstone. Our capstone is a full year pathway, and it's connected to the work that the students have been doing since their freshman year. And it's the capstone in many ways that sets some of our students apart as they apply for their next move for the university. They can show that, you know, they have college classes. They've been successful in college classes. They've built incredible skills, but they've also been successful as a professional in a professional environment. So those are the things that really distinguish us as a program. So we are going to introduce our panel. We're going to switch over to our panel. And this evening we have myself, I'll be on the panel, and I'll actually be directing the panel. And then I'm going to invite each of our panelists to introduce themselves and then kind of share what's the most interesting part of Arlington Tech to them, what they want for you to hear tonight, what they think would be most important for you to know as a prospective parent or a prospective student. And I'm going to ask them to go in the order that we see on the slide. So we're going to start with Ms. Gagan, our counselor, and then we're going to go to Dr. Van Laer, Ms. Capero, one of our CTE teachers. She teaches forensics and actually a couple other classes as well. Jack is an 11th grade student. Talia is one of our 12th grade students. And then I'm hoping we're able to connect our parents, Haewon Kim and Renee Atkinson. So I'm going to hand it over and let Ms. Gagan introduce herself and share what she wants you guys to hear about Arlington Tech tonight.
Hello, everybody. I'm Erin Gagan, one of the school counselors for the Arlington Tech program. This year, I currently have the 9th grade and the 11th grades at Arlington Tech, and it's just been a really wonderful experience. I just want to commend our speakers already because I think they covered a lot of the points that I think make Arlington Tech such an incredibly special place, a hidden gem, I think, like Ms. Steinmetz said. I think one of the most wonderful things and one of the things that our students enjoy so much about the program is that project-based learning. I think it really, they're not doing these things individually, just alone by themselves. They're really working in small groups and teams, learning how to be collaborative, learning how to communicate, learning how to problem solve, and doing that with other peers. And I think that's really been a special experience for them.
Dr. Van Laer, can you please unmute yourself? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Van Laer, and I teach English at Arlington Tech. I teach English 10, so this year I have all sophomores, and it's my second year at Arlington Tech. And what I've discovered at Arlington Tech is that we get to work with a lot of students who have passions, really interesting passions, and we have a lot of teachers with a lot of interesting passions. And so it's very fun to work with passionate people who have interesting stories and who have varied interests. It's just a great place to be.
Hello, everyone. I am Ann Capero, and I teach forensics in the CTE program, but I also teach the dual enrolled biology. So I get a lot of Arlington Tech seniors there, whereas in forensics, I get all ages of Arlington Tech. And I can speak to both of those. And what I love about the program is that in forensics, they come in to explore. As they do all the CTE classes. But when they get to dual enrolled biology in their senior year, they have a real honed sense of how to study, how to think, and that's super important. It's a class that's very, very intense. It's a class that's very, very tough, and yet every single student I have in there is so capable because of what they've gone through for the past 3 years in Arlington Tech. So it's really a joy to teach those students.
Hi, I'm Jack Newell. I am a junior at Arlington Tech. And what I love about the school is I think the opportunities that I get are I just get a lot of opportunities. Like when I was going into high school, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I thought maybe computer science or aviation, and so far I've taken 2 computer programming classes at Arlington Tech, and I've taken an aviation class. And in the computer programming class, I've got to do projects as if I was actually working at a company that I would be working at with a computer programming degree. And in the aviation class, I got to fly a real plane, which So I think the experiences that I get, it makes the school unique.
Hi, my name is Talia Penn, and the thing that I think that makes Arlington Tech the most unique is the versatility of the school. I know I'm in dual enrolled biology and I struggled, but my teachers are very hands-on and they're very helpful. And so no matter what you do, the school is always backing you. Your teachers are always backing you. And if you want something, they'll help you get it as long as you have the drive to do so. And that's one of the best things about Arlington Tech.
Hey, Juan, I think you're next if you're able to introduce yourself. I don't know if you can see the screen.
And I think, unfortunately, our parent reps were not able to join in. So I'm going to pass it back to Ms. Steinmetz.
Okay. All right. Well, you're going to hear from our teachers and from our students then. And I'm actually going to start with the first question. I'm going to ask for Talia to address, and then also Dr. Van Laer. So one of the questions were, how many projects per year in each class on average do students do? And Talia, as a senior, has been, almost 4 years into this, and I would like to hear her perspective, and then Dr. Van Laer from the instructional perspective.
Well, in terms of how many, there are a lot. Like, it's hard for me to even count because you're taking 4 core classes and then 2 CTE classes, and your CTE classes are pretty much all project-based learning. And so then in your core classes, I'd say on average you may have about 2 projects a month, and then you're in school for 4 years. So it's quite a lot, but they're all very fun and they're really great for supplementing your learning. I hope that answered your question.
And I'll just piggyback on that. So I can just speak for the sophomore year. It really depends on the teachers. So in English, we have very long projects that will last for an entire quarter or even longer. So students really have time to develop a large project. But in some classes, they have shorter. So in chemistry, they'll have shorter projects. So they'll have more of them, but they'll take shorter times, shorter runways. So it depends. And students do talk a lot about having to balance multiple projects. So that is part of the entire package.
All right, so for our next question, I'm going to ask Jack to chime in and then Ms. Capero. And the question is, project-based, how many students typically work in a group? And how do you ensure that every student is involved and there's not just a few carrying the load? And so, Jack, if you wanted to talk to that from the student's perspective, and then Ms. Capero, if you wanted to talk to that from the teacher's perspective.
So usually I would say I think the biggest group I've ever been in had 5 people, but most groups have 4 people. And then sometimes, depending on the class size, you have 3. But the way you delegate the roles is there is a at the beginning of every project, you sign you write a couple documents that show what everybody's role in the group will be, and everyone has to put in their contact information. So you're in contact with your group throughout the entire project, and you kind of stick with the roles, and the roles will delegate how much work people do.
All right, from the instructional perspective, and especially in the CTE classes, typically most of us do about exactly what Jack said. 3 for small classes, 4 is probably ideal. Sometimes projects have 5 students, but that isn't ideal. That happens when you have really big equipment and you don't have enough for smaller groups, and usually because we have really good equipment at the Career Center in different classes, we don't tend to have to go to that level of having such a huge group. But the good thing about that size is it's easy for us as instructors to manage. It's very easy for us to check in on students. It's very easy for us to assimilate and walk around. I know from speaking just for myself and for most of the health and medical team that we all get very involved with the students and have good rapport, and we don't have any problem calling home if there's an issue. And so that's something that all of us are committed to, is making sure that there's good parent contact as well as guidance for the students, so that if somebody isn't pulling their weight, we get involved with that. If someone is overachieving and taking over from someone else, we get involved with that too. So it's a pretty manageable situation for most of us. I can speak for the health and medical cluster.
And just kind of adding to that, we also use a lot of check-ins and benchmarks, and then also our technology. Our teachers can kind of see, who's developing documents, who's engaging in online documents, because even when we're in school, we still use a lot of collaborative tech tools. And there's also kind of those benchmarks, especially in the 9th grade, kind of a checkout at the end of every day where the students have to document kind of what they did and what they contributed and what they're looking at their role. Did they meet their role? So there's a lot of scaffolding, especially in the 9th and the 10th grade, to help students understand what a good working group looks like. We are going to go, I'm going to actually answer this question myself, and I'm going to ask my moderator to go back to the slide with all the CTE options. The question is, what are some of the CTE courses that are options in the 10th grade? And for the most part, this menu of courses opens up for all in the 10th grade. There are some classes that do have prerequisites. And then some classes, because of the certifications, would require that the student is 16 years old. And those, for the most part, that's our health and medical, in our health and medical cluster. For instance, like the EMT course, right? The student is to be certified as an EMT, they need to be at least 16 years old. And they can go on and earn a national certification. And so it's an incredible program there. But in the 10th grade, there's no restriction. It really just is based on that prerequisite and that student's age. And they could take any number of these CT courses. If they're already done with their world language, they can start adding more than one program. Some of these classes are 2 blocks. They take up 2 class periods. Some of them are single class periods. But in the 9th grade, there is a limited selection of CT courses. But then that opens up in the 10th grade. I'm just looking for the next question, if you could wait for me.
Ms. Steinmetz, one of the questions I was hoping to have the panel speak to was to talk a little bit about their experience with assessments. There was a couple people asked if there were still tests in Arlington Tech.
So I'll jump in on that one. It's important to know that project-based learning still includes a lot of components that look traditional. So during the learn section of our, remember the visual of the whole process that we go through, students are going to get notes, and they are going to learn content, and we are going to do some pretty traditional things in the classroom to make sure that that content is there. We're still meeting all of the standards, and we're still making sure that students are prepared for all of the assessments that they have to take. And so they will take tests. they'll be doing the project, and often the projects come before the test so that they feel really confident in the content because they've had to use it. Sometimes the projects come after the test because you've shown that you know it on one level, but now can you apply it? So it's kind of that, and it's not as a substitute for tests and papers and so on and so forth. It's tests and papers and all this experience with projects.
Thank you, Dr. Van Leer. So one of the questions, and this does come up a lot, is about arts and music programming. And I see one of the questions is, are art classes offered at Arlington Tech? And I always get questions about band and orchestra. So since we are not the comprehensive high school, we don't have a fine arts program, and we don't have a music program. So we don't have orchestra or choir or marching band. Now, some of those programs some of those arts programs and music programs are still available to you through your neighborhood high school. They would be the ones that are considered extracurricular. If they are a credit-bearing course that the student has to register for, so marching band is a good example, then the Arlington Tech students can't access that as an Arlington Tech student. They could access any of the extracurricular activities that have an after-school component, but if it has a in-school component, then Arlington Tech students can't access that. I do want for our students, if either Talia or Jack would be willing to speak, we don't offer fine arts and we don't have music, but I find when I talk to a lot of students that the opportunities to be to have a lot of choice in the projects and to be very creative in the projects gives them an opportunity to really explore that creativity in a different way. Jack or Talia, did you want to add anything to that?
I can speak on that. So in terms of arts, most of our PBL projects have something to do with art because creativity is one of our components. And then in terms of like band and orchestra and music, even though we don't directly offer those like extracurricular activities, we still have things like our STEP team, and we have monthly programs for different things. And like I've sang the national anthem twice for the graduation ceremonies and the Black History ceremony. And so there are other opportunities if you really want them. Yeah.
So I see another question asking what is advisory like, and so that's our intervention period. We call that CC support, so Career Center support, and that would meet every day. Dr. Van Leer, do you want to talk a little bit about what we do in our CC support classes?
Sure. CC support is a great time because we get to meet with smaller groups every day with the same students. So you really get to know those students, and it's focusing on a couple different things. First of all, we focus on academics. So it's a chance for a teacher to check in and make sure that students are staying on top of things, or if they need any help. It's a chance for students to go to see other teachers. So it's a break in the day where if they need a little bit of more time or they want more help with something, they can go to another teacher's room, or in this case, screen, and spend a little bit of time with that teacher to get some more help. And then it's also a chance for us to make sure that students are getting to know each other. So we can do activities and community building activities to make sure that people are connecting on some level. It's also a time that we do some really fun activities in Arlington Tech to build our traditions and build our community. If anybody else wants to jump in there and add to that, please do.
I can speak on that as well. I am on the cultural leadership team, and so our primary goal is to build the culture of Arlington Tech, considering we're relatively new. And so this past October, we had a pumpkin decorating contest because we don't promote dangerous items. And then we also had a costume contest that we held virtually on our Instagram page. And it was really fun. A lot of people entered, and we got a winner. And it was just really great for the school spirit. So we do a lot of fun things.
So we have a question again about group work and projects, and one of the questions is there, are all projects group projects? And Jack, did you want to talk about that?
So not every project is a group project. A lot of them, I would say most projects are group projects, but not every. It really depends on the teacher how they delegate their projects. Sometimes, for example, in my history class, I have a group, but then we all do our own work, and then we work together on our own things. So maybe we can help each other do certain things, but we're all working individually. So it really depends on the teacher.
I can speak to that as well. So I can speak to that from the level of my forensic science class. There are mock crime scenes in forensic science, and those are totally group projects where everybody has to pull their weight to be able to show that they know how to do the job that they've been assigned. But there are other projects where they work analyzing prints, for example, and they work individually on that, but they sit next to each other and bounce ideas off of each other. So I think a fair amount of us do things that way in the CTE realm, that we have some things where everybody's involved and some things where each student has their own set of information, but they're allowed to work together. So, it still promotes collaboration.
Thank you. So another question we have, and this one is a good question, is it the case that many of the students drawn to Arlington Tech were unhappy with the traditional learning environment? And I'm going to share a little bit, and then I'm also going to ask perhaps that Dr. Van Leer and either of our students kind of share their perspective on this question as well. When I'm working with students through the application process, I find that for the most part, the students are not kind of pushed away from the traditional environment, but pulled into Arlington Tech because of the unique opportunities we have. So really the project-based learning isn't for everyone, and traditional isn't learning isn't for everyone. We have quite a few students that were very successful in the traditional classrooms, but they wanted to try something different. They wanted to build different skills, but they weren't unhappy in their old schools. They just wanted to try something new. They were successful, and they wanted to see what else is out there. We have some students that were not happy. They were bored with traditional, and they wanted to see if project-based learning was a better fit. So I would say that a lot of it pivots around that instructional environment, but one of the biggest draws is the access that we can offer to our incredible CTE classes. And so that really captures students' interests and imaginations, because they start to see incredible career pathways and incredible opportunities to build skills. So yeah, if Dr. Van Leer or one of our students also wanted to offer their perspective on what really draws students into Arlington Tech.
I'll just speak very quickly, and then I would love to hear from our students too. I do know that everybody kind of has their own reason, and I'm thinking of some of the seniors this year when I asked why Arlington Tech, why did you come here? The capstone project was a big draw for many students. They came in actually with a vision already of what they want to use that time for and what they hoped they got out of it. So the fact that project-based learning is always a discussion about what people envision that it's going to be, and what they like, what they get out of it. Today, I asked my sophomore classes, what should I highlight? What should people know in order to be able to come to Arlington Tech? And quite a few of them said that they really liked project-based learning, and that they think that it's something different than they would get in their home high school. So mostly it's because they think that there's something else that's offered here that they're hoping that they can get to experience that they wouldn't get to experience at their home high school. I'd love to hear from our students.
I can speak to this a little bit. So I'm kind of in the camp where I wasn't necessarily pushed away from the conventional teaching style, but I was pulled by the project-based learning, which I mean, I it definitely engaged me in learning a lot more than my middle school classes did. Especially in math. I think project-based learning really helped me learn in my math classes in geometry, algebra 2, and pre-calc now. But I can see how it's not, just like how conventional learning isn't for everyone. Project-based learning wouldn't be for everyone.
Talia, do you want to share what drew you to Arlington Tech?
Sure. So when I initially applied for Arlington Tech, I had just moved from Arlington a year ago, and the middle school that I had went to initially supported project-based learning. And so coming from a project-based learning standpoint into a more traditional version of learning, it was something to adapt to. And once I got to Arlington Tech, it kind of put me back in my element, and it was a great way for me to experience my learning, because I'm a kinesthetic learner. So it's very difficult for me to just sit there and read something and then truly learn it. I have to work with something and apply it to the greater theme of life. And that's what really drew me to Arlington Tech.
Ms. Steinmetz, there have been a few questions about special education supports. I was wondering if I might be able to speak to some of those questions really briefly.
Please do.
Okay. While we didn't include it as a slide in our presentation, usually I give a plug, and I think I'm on the next follow-up page as well. I do oversee the special education department for the building, and I am happy to answer any questions about students' learning needs individually as well. But we do support special education students and students with 504s in our program as an option program in a smaller, non-comprehensive site. We do have some limitations to those services that we have available. However, we do work closely with IEP teams and families to understand what supports and services we have available so you can make the most informed decision for your child. We do have support such as instructional studies and co-taught classes if needed that are supported either by special education teachers or some of our instructional assistants that work in collaboration and consultation with our special education teachers. We really try to make sure that all students are able to experience success. I think there are some things that students and families just should know coming in, and really the biggest thing is if your student is interested in this learning model and want to participate in project-based learning and want to engage with their peers and communicate and collaborate together, we're here to support their learning. So we definitely do support special education and students with 504s as well in our programs.
So the next question I see is about how this year was different and how it feels different in the virtual environment compared to the in-person environment. So this would be a great question for either one of our students or for either one of our teachers. Would anyone like to address that?
I can go. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Yep. Thanks, Jack.
So in my opinion, the transition to the virtual learning has been pretty smooth with the way we do classes, especially my core classes. I feel like the work we do, it's definitely not the same, but it transitioned well. And the CTE classes definitely aren't as easy to transition to virtual, but I still get a good experience for my CTE classes. Like the best we can do with the available resources.
I'll jump in. So I can speak to this from both a CTE perspective and a dual enrollment senior class perspective. As a people person, I miss the heck out of talking to the students and being there, being in the moment with the students. And it has definitely been hard with regard to forensic science, because it is such a hands-on discussion, interesting class that people enjoy, students enjoy when they're in the class. With that said, we've done fairly well, and I think students would say it's a very interesting class still, because a lot of us are working very, very hard. The physical therapy teacher that works with me has the students wrapping her parents, and they're all wrapping, you know, their mom's ankle, their dad's knee, so that they can learn. So, you know, the adaptations are really interesting. From the dual enrollment perspective, I also very much miss having the students in person, because normally dual enrollment at the senior level is a culmination, right? It's everything's come together. You have finished all the early stuff. You have done so well and mastered, you know, a tremendous amount of material. And now you're at that last pinnacle. So usually for seniors, it's a huge discussion class. And unfortunately, we've had to have less of that because of the synchronous asynchronous mix. So it has been a bit of an adjustment, at least I feel that way. But I think, you know, the beautiful thing is Arlington pays, at least in the sciences, for an additional program that we have, which is the same one they use at Northern Virginia Community College, which is the Pearson program for mastering biology. And so at least they're having a similar experience in activities that they're doing that we would have been doing had we been in the class anyway. But all of us are in teaching to see kids. We're not in teaching to talk to a computer.
And I'll just jump in to add to that. You know, what we've seen is that students still, and I've been so impressed with the sophomores, they meet in small groups, they have breakouts, they meet every class period with their group to push their projects forward. They figured out how to communicate best online. And we just had, in my class, we just had presentations of their first big project that they've been working on for an extended amount of time. And the presentations were top notch and the products were top notch, and they were all online and virtual, and students can, you know, spend today exploring each other's projects. So it's still a time that we're gathering as a community and learning together and pushing each other and collaborating, and students are figuring out how to do that at high levels. So I'm really appreciative.
So I think we're just about out of time, and I think that we've addressed almost all of our questions, either through the panel or through the chat. The presentation tonight, these slides and the recording of this event will be available on our website. If you go to the Arlington Tech website and go to the upcoming events, you'll be able to see the slides, the resources. So there were 2 handouts from tonight for you to look at more closely, the framework for our project-based learning, and then also that course pathway that shows the structure of our courses. And then the recording will be there tonight as well. I want to thank our panelists, especially our students and our teachers after a long day of learning, coming back to us to help inform our community about what our program is. And then unfortunately, our parents, I see that they were able to interact with us through the Q&A, and I really appreciate that. Unfortunately, you weren't able to see their faces tonight, but we have an incredibly strong parent group, of which Haywan and Renee are both board members, and you'll absolutely have a chance to interact with more of our parents if that's something that you're interested in. And if you could just flip to the next slide, please. So if you do have any more questions, feel free to reach out. My email address is Catherine Steinmetz, and if you had questions specific about the Arlington Tech program, if you had questions about what is offered at the Arlington Career Center, remembering that Arlington Tech is one piece of what's happening at the Career Center. Our principal, Miss Margaret Chung, is available for you. And then any questions specific to special education or 504 supports would go to Miss Baker. The application is open, as we mentioned. It's available on the Arlington Tech website. Actually, we're just going to redirect you to the main APS site because that's technically where it's available, because there is one application for all the choice programs, and it's an online application. There are no testing requirements. You know, it's of course it's free to apply to our choice programs. There's a component that needs to be completed by the parent and the student, so you should do that together. But you can go in and out of the application. That application, like we said, you still have a little bit of time to review that, but it's pretty quick and it's easy. And so we'd encourage you, if you are interested in applying for a spot at Arlington Tech, that you do that soon. There's other information about our program. You can explore some videos from our students and some videos about our classes on our website, visiting both the Arlington Tech website, but also spend a minute to visit the Arlington Career Center website as well. I hope this was informative tonight, and we really do, you know what? Yeah, we really do appreciate your time. I just saw another question come in, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to stick around just one more minute and answer questions, but thank you all for joining us tonight.
Ms. Steinmetz, I recently added a question to the Q&A there about the diversity of the student body.
Yeah, that was what I was.
It came in right at the end, so I wanted to make sure I put it up there.
You know, I'm just going to speak to that. I know that maybe people are signing off, but I do want to say that we absolutely are striving to be as diverse as Arlington, and we want to make sure that our program represents Arlington. And so we've done a lot of intentional recruiting to make sure that folks that may not necessarily typically associate with a tech program are considering Arlington Tech as an option and sustaining within the program and being successful within the program. Yeah, so our numbers do look very representative of who we are as a community in Arlington. Remember that we're drawing from all of our middle schools. We're drawing from all of across from the whole community, from all of Arlington, and so it's important for us to represent the community as Arlington is represented. So I think this is, yeah. You see more questions coming in. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to thank everyone. I'm sure some of you already signed off, but thank you again for spending your evening with us. And thank you again to our participants and our panelists.